African American veterans returned from World War II seeking full rights in their country and began heightened activism in exchange for support by that portion of the black community that could vote. In 1948, the mayor ordered the hiring of the first 8 African American police officers in the city. Much controversy preceded the 1956 Sugar Bowl, when the Pitt Panthers, with African American fullback Bobby Greer on the roster, met the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. There had been controversy over whether Greer should be allowed to play due to his race, and whether Georgia Tech should even play at all due to Georgia's Governor Marvin Griffin's opposition to racial integration. After Griffin publicly sent a telegram to the state's Board of Regents requesting Georgia Tech not to engage in racially integrated events. Georgia Tech's President Blake R. Van Leer rejected the request and threatened to resign. The game went on as planned. In the 1960s, Atlanta became a major organizing center of the civil rights movement, with Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph David Abernathy, and students from Atlanta's historically black colleges and universities playing major roles in the movement's leadership. While Atlanta in the post-war years had relatively minimal racial strife compared to other cities, blacks were limited by discrimination, segregation, and continued disenfranchisement of most voters. In 1961, the city attempted to thwart blockbusting by realtors by erecting road barriers in Cascade Heights, countering the efforts of civic and business leaders to foster Atlanta as the city too busy to hate. Desegregation of the public sphere came in stages, with public transportation desegregated by 1959. The restaurant at Rich's department store by 1961. Movie theaters by 1963. And public schools by 1973. Nearly 20 years after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that segregated public schools were unconstitutional. In 1960, whites comprised 61.7% of the city's population. During the 1950s to 70s, suburbanization and white flight from urban areas led to a significant demographic shift. By 1970, African Americans were the majority of the city's population and exercised their recently enforced voting rights and political influence by electing Atlanta's first black mayor, Maynard Jackson, in 1973. Under Mayor Jackson's tenure, Atlanta's airport was modernized, strengthening the city's role as a transportation center. The opening of the Georgia World Congress Center in 1976 heralded Atlanta's rise as a convention city. Construction of the city's subway system began in 1975, with rail service commencing in 1979. Despite these improvements, Atlanta lost more than 100,000 residents between 1970 and 1990. Over 20% of its population. At the same time, it developed new office space after attracting numerous corporations, with an increasing portion of workers from northern areas.